Once upon a time, there lived a man called Baba Agba. Baba Agba was a very wealthy and prominent man in the village of Opa-Ikokore. He was part of the tribe of the Opa. That means one who is a bona fide member and one who owns mastery of the Opa community. He owned the largest cocoa plantation in the village, scaling over 20 acres of land. Baba Agba had two sons, Toke, the older brother, and Tolani, the junior one. Both brothers had very opposite personalities to one another. They were both trained by their father Baba Agba to farm and produce cocoa. But their father was facing a bit of a headache because of the different personalities of his two sons. While Toke, the elder son, was reserved, calm, very calculated, overly ambitious and skillful in farming, Tolani, on the other hand, was a pain in the neck of his father. He had something his elder brother would call the cursed hands. What this meant was that whenever Tolani planted something on their father's farm, the plants would die. There was nothing that Tolani planted that ever survived or sprouted. His elder brother, on the other hand, was the productive one, and he would shame Tolani for this defect of his. Tolani was always frustrated with farming to the point that he hated going to the farm and carried the thought of one day taking over some portion of his father's plantation as a very big burden in his heart. It was something he would run away from if he had the chance to. But even with this trouble he had with his farming, he was still a pain in the neck with every other aspect of his life. Everywhere trouble could be found was where you would find Tolani. Tolani was very stubborn, very adamant, and just never took his life seriously. Despite being the son of the richest man in the village, Tolani would go out every day just to look for trouble, troubling the women of the village. Each day, either he is being chased by the women of the village for one thing or the other, or someone is screaming at their lungs because Tolani had come around to disrupt their peace. There was one particular old lady who owned an orchard in the village. Tolani would always sneak in to steal and eat her apples very comfortably inside her orchard. Every time the old woman would catch him, she would almost die of frustration because Tolani just would not stop coming to steal her fruits. If it was not that, then he was stealing people's chickens, just to roast them and eat whenever he is bored. Every day, he was being reported to his father, Baba Agba, for all the troubles he was causing in the town. His father was beginning to develop high BP because of his son Tolani. He would scold him every now and then, saying, "Do you want to kill me before my time, Tolani? We have everything. Why are you disgracing me and spoiling my reputation in this village? Why are you stealing from people and troubling their peace? Is this how you are going to run my plantation when I am gone with this your behavior?" He would ask him angrily, but Tolani would only act remorseful at that moment, but would still go back to his normal daily routine. His father had to return chickens, apples, and other items daily to the people he stole from to compensate for their anger. But despite Tolani's bad behavior, underneath the troublesome son was a very caring heart, even on the days when he would go out to steal from people. If peradventure he meets or sees a beggar on the road or anyone who doesn't have, he would give to them out of what he had stolen. This was another weird behavior, one would say. But Tolani could not stand to see an hungry person pass by without sharing or lending a helping hand. He was also known for his very good cooking skills. One thing he made sure of was to feed his father. He would take his time to make good meals for his father as they always ate and laughed together. On the other hand, his elder brother Toke was one whom no one could ever mistakenly catch laughing or smiling. He was always serious, keeping a straight face all day. He was not so close to his father, unlike Tolani. All he cared about was the farm and the cocoa production. He was so consumed with work to the extent that he did not even have the time for women. He knew the time was coming closer for his father, Baba Agba, to share his land and give portions of the cocoa plantation to himself and his junior brother as their inheritance. But Toke wanted it all to himself. He banked on the simple fact that his junior brother was too useless and a good-for-nothing fellow that knew nothing but how to bring nothing to the house. Toke always felt he was the better son, more hardworking and dedicated to his father's plantation, and so him alone should inherit the entire land on the passing of his father. He would always go to the forest to train with his special hunting weapon during his spare time. Aside from being a good farmer, he was also very skillful in hunting for prey, and he trained himself in it daily. As the days went on, each day, Baba Agba would worry and fear for the fate of his little son Tolani. If he continued this lifestyle, he would turn out to be completely useless as a son and also useless to the society. What if he was no longer around to protect him? What would become of his son? With his BP rising up daily because of the constant thinking and fear Tolani was causing him, he devised a plan he hoped would change Tolani his son and also preserve his own life so he doesn't die from heart attack one day because of Tolani. But this plan was a secret he did not share with anyone. Soon, he called his two sons to tell them he was going to invite someone to the house to live with them, a slave girl from a faraway land. He had heard many good things about her, so he was going to buy her as his personal slave and see if those things he heard about her were true. Toke had no issue with the idea. Do whatever makes you sleep well at night, he said to his father. So long as she doesn't cross my path, I will have no problem with her. But Tolani, as expected, was very much against the idea. What do we need a servant for? Am I not here cooking all your meals and taking care of you, father? This your so-called slave girl will come and mess things up. She is going to make this house uncomfortable for me. I don't want anything or anyone that will infringe my space. Don't worry about that, my sons. The girl is very good, careful and gentle, so I heard. And having someone around to help out could never be a bad thing. Me, I don't want any house slave girl. Tolani muttered in disagreement as he left the room. And so, Baba Agba sent word for the slave girl to be sent to his village, despite his son's disagreement. This slave girl's name was DUMEBI. DUMEBI was an orphan from the tribe of Enoalada. The Enus were a slave-minded people. Enoalada was a community where slaves were born and sold to the landowners, the feudal lords, rich men who owned and controlled lands. The people of this community were illiterate and lived only to please their masters. This was the reason for their birth and existence. Every child that was born to the Alada clan had only one fate, which was to be a slave to the landmaster or a feudal lord. They lived to serve those who owned and controlled lands. DUMEBI was an Enu. After the payment for DUMEBI was sent in full, she started her journey to be brought by the sage to Opa-Ikokore to serve her new master. When DUMEBI finally got to Baba Agba's house, she knelt before him and said, I kneel before you, my master, to please you and do whatever you wish for me to do. I live to serve you. What is your name? Baba Agba asked her. My name is DUMEBI, my lord, she replied. Baba Agba was pleased. Make yourself comfortable. This is your new home. Tomorrow, you will meet my sons. Make sure you do whatever they tell you. When Tolani saw DUMEBI, the slave girl, he was not pleased at all. He hated her from the day he heard she was coming for no reason. Toke, on the other hand, just did not care for her existence. He had the cocoa farm to think about. He was always never friendly or noticed whatever went on in his surroundings. Tolani, on the other hand, was very invested only to make trouble. What kind of human is this? He said when he saw DUMEBI. She has golden hair. This one looks like someone that will not be wise. I don't know why. I don't know why father brought her. I cannot enjoy my privacy anymore. He thought to himself, I will frustrate the hell out of her till she will be the one to pack her things and run from this place. We don't need any slave girl. And so DUMEBI's job started. She was very hardworking. She would get up very early at 4 a.m. and start filling the large drums with water. She would clean the entire compound and do all the laundry perfectly. Baba Agba used to watch her from his window and smile to himself. He was happy about the decision he had made. But to Tolani, who either was somewhere making trouble or at home all day to avoid going to the farm, everything DUMEBI did irritated him. He made sure he frustrated her life every day. One day, while DUMEBI was sweeping the compound, he said to her, Hey, Olodo, you can see that I am sitting down here and I am wearing white. Don't let that your dust come near where I am. Yes, little master, she said. She was very scared of him and Toke, his elder brother. Only their father, Baba Agba, made her feel welcome. Tolani would call her Olodo all the time. He did not even know her real name. One particular time, there was a feast in Baba Agba's house where he invited his close relatives to celebrate that year's harvest. DUMEBI was the one who prepared all the food for the feast. After serving everyone, they all said the food was very good and praised DUMEBI's cooking. But when she served the food to Tolani and his father, Tolani insulted her and condemned her cooking. He said he could not eat the food, embarrassing her to the entire family members. DUMEBI felt like the floor should open and swallow her in that moment. I am sorry, little master, she said shamefully. Meanwhile, behind the back, Tolani carried most of the food she had made to his room secretly and finished the whole plate. While DUMEBI was feeling useless, she felt she was not fulfilling her duty as a slave girl or an Enu. The days DUMEBI spent in the house with Tolani was hell for her and filled with sadness. One night, when DUMEBI was about to sleep inside the hut, Tolani shouted at her to go and sleep outside. "Who told you can sleep here?" he said to her. "Go outside." "Yes, little master," DUMEBI said. She went sadly to sleep outside under the shade in the compound. Baba Agba would look from his window and watch how Tolani treated DUMEBI badly. This made him feel very bad. He would only shake his head in disapproval. On the other hand, during her stay in the house, DUMEBI had very little encounters with the elder brother Toke, as he was never around, always on the farm or always inside his room with his door shut tightly. Baba Agba called Tolani to confront him on why he was being so mean and hard on the slave girl. His father warned him to be nicer to her. He did not like the way that he had been treating the girl. Tolani could really care less. When Baba Agba saw how truly hardworking DUMEBI actually was, he began to enforce the plan he had made from the inception. One day, Baba Agba called his two sons to the plantation and shared the land into 2 portions, giving 1.5 portion to Toke and what was left to Tolani. He was going to retire from farming as he was now old, so they would take over the plantation. Then, he gave them 2 separate bands. He told them they were both to farm on each portion of land given to them and fill up their barns with the cocoa they harvested. Whoever fills up his barn with 20,000 cocoa beans would be the one to get the entire plantation and take over from him. But Baba Agba had a secret, something he wanted to achieve with this arrangement. Surprisingly, Toke was not very pleased with the idea, despite he was given more than half of the farmland to harvest from. But he knew that Tolani would fail. He has cursed hands. After all, he laughed to himself. This would be my opportunity to get what I always wanted and take over the plantation. Tolani, on the other hand, was devastated by this assignment he had been given by his father. He knew he had lost the battle before it even began. Given that his hands could not make any crop grow, he wondered why his father set him up to fail. The next day, their task started. As the brothers were on their way to the farm, Toke began to whisper to his junior brother, "I wonder why you bother. You shouldn't have tried to join me for this competition. You know you have cursed hands. Do you really think you can succeed in this? If I were you, I wouldn't bother. I would have looked for something else to do with my life. Let me think. Maybe like becoming the barn carrier. Because you do not have the ability to give life to a plant in you. Helping me carry my harvest would have been a more suitable job for you. At least it is way more prestigious than being a village local thief." Tolani was disheartened to hear this from his own elder brother. He felt so ashamed of himself and lost whatever iota of confidence he had left in him to try. He replied, "You can take over all the plantation if you want. I know that has always been your desire. If you want me to be only a carrier, I will be your carrier. I am not competing with you. I am only doing this to make father happy." Toke replied, "We shall see about that." They both went and planted on their farms, and in no time, Toke started harvesting. His crops were growing so fast, he began to fill his portion with cocoa. Meanwhile, Tolani's crops never grew. His barn remained empty. This made him feel very sad. He felt like a failure. One day, Baba Agba called his son Tolani and told him that from that day, DUMEBI would be going with him to the farm to assist him. "What? Never. I knew it. I knew you never believed in me. That is why you have given me this task. You want to set me up to fail, father." he said with a broken heart. No, my son, that is the reason why I am giving DUMEBI to you to work with you. You can see how hardworking she is. Maybe you can learn 1 or 2 things from her on the farm, and maybe your crops would stop dying all the time. What can I learn from that Olodo girl? What are you saying? You want me to learn from a slave? He said angrily and in dismay. I am your father, and after all these years of being with me, you haven't learned a thing. Never look down on anyone. How do you think I came this far? DUMEBI will follow you to work with you on your portion from now on, and that is final. And so, the next day, DUMEBI started to follow Tolani to his farm. You could see the disdain and anger on Tolani's face each day as they went together to his farm. Things went on like this for a while. During the days at home, whenever DUMEBI served Baba Agba food, she would kneel down to wait for him to finish eating, as she had always done with her previous masters. But Baba Agba would rebuke her to stand up. She did not have to do so, as he was only a mere human, just like her. But whenever DUMEBI would bring Tolani's food to serve him in his room, he would scream at her to drop the food and get out. One particular day, for the first time ever, Toke was in his room, so DUMEBI took some food to serve him inside his room. He was lost in thought and did not hear her knock on the door. When she opened the door to serve him, she saw that his room was filled with different kinds of catapults on the wall. Toke also screamed at her to leave. I saw that you were around. I only wanted to bring in your food, master, she said fearfully. Shut the door and never enter this room again, he warned sternly. It was an unbearable life for DUMEBI in the hands of the 2 brothers. But DUMEBI kept working hard, doing all that she was instructed to by Baba Agba. Baba Agba called his son Tolani to come and see his barren portion. When they got there, Tolani could not believe what he was seeing with his eyes. His portion was filled with harvest. DUMEBI had been working hard on his farm. Her hands were blessed and his crops grew. This made Tolani very happy. I too am shocked. I was not expecting this kind of result from her. His father said to him, I told you so. Learn from her. But although Tolani was very happy about this, he still did not like DUMEBI being around him. He even accused her of wanting to steal his shine by making all his dead crops grow so that his father would never send her away from their house. No, little master, all I did was plant the seed and water it faithfully, my master. Whatever, he said to her, I am watching your every move. He said this and left. One day, when Tolani and DUMEBI were on their way to the farm, an old hungry woman came before them. DUMEBI quickly gave her some of her apples to eat. When Tolani saw this side of DUMEBI, he was surprised. That really touched his heart, and in that moment, his view of DUMEBI changed. He started seeing her as a woman. Soon, he began to follow her methods, planting with her, and surprisingly, his own crops started growing. Then he began to fill his barns with cocoa. After all the beautiful encounters, one night when DUMEBI went to serve Tolani his food, fearfully as usual, this time he said to her, Wait, don't go till I finish. She immediately knelt down. Stand up and sit. Sit till I finish eating, DUMEBI. DUMEBI was really surprised. For the first time, the little master called her real name. The food is delicious, he said. DUMEBI left there smiling. The next day, she was very happy and could not stop smiling. And so, they started going happily to plant together on the farm. He would also join her to fetch water to fill the large tanks in the compound. And so, a sweet love built between them. Tolani was totally smitten by DUMEBI, the slave girl. Because of her wisdom, soon he married her. Her little master had now become her husband. Soon, Toke began to notice that Tolani's barn was getting filled. He was shocked by how his brother's portion of land was producing. And before he knew it, Tolani's portion began to be filled with cocoa. It was almost getting to the 20,000 count. Toke was almost going mad because of this. He could not understand the secret behind the sudden change. He would go deep in the forest to hunt with his catapult, bearing his frustrations on the forest and on his prey. After a while, Tolani's cocoa got to the 20,000. He happily rushed home to tell his father. When Toke heard this, he was heartbroken. He confronted his father for cheating to make Tolani inherit the entire land. His father tried to explain that he only wanted Tolani to learn that his hands were indeed not cursed. He did not do it to make Toke lose anything. Toke stormed off angrily and did not wait for him to finish explaining. Toke went on to drinking and did not return home for days. His father kept looking for him to no avail. Toke, in his rage and in his anguish, went to see the village herbalist and requested for a concussion he was going to use to destroy his opponent. The herbalist told Toke, "This thing you are about to do cannot be undone. Are you sure you want to use what I am about to give you on your enemy? Once it is done, there is no going back." Toke was resolute. He was going to do anything to get rid of his enemy. He took the charm and paid the price for it. The very next day, while Baba Agba was still searching for Toke, he went to the village herbalist to help him check where his son Toke had gone for days. The Baba told him Toke was just there to see him the day before. Baba Agba was shocked. Why? He asked him. Baba Agba narrated all that had happened to the Baba and the reason his son had left the house without returning. The herbalist was shocked. He never knew the enemy Toke was referring to was his brother Tolani. He quickly told Baba Agba about the charm Toke had requested of him to make, and he had done it. It was possible he was going to use that charm to do evil on his own brother. On hearing this, Baba Agba, without waiting for the Baba to finish, began to run to his son Tolani's farm. As he was approaching his farm, he sighted Toke, who was hiding inside the bushes, aiming his catapult at Tolani. He ran and screamed his son's name to save him from what was coming. But Tolani did not hear his father's scream. DUMEBI, who was also on the farm working, because of how sensitive she was as a slave girl, heard Baba Agba's voice from a distance. She looked over only to see Toke aiming his catapult at Tolani. "Little master," she screamed, running to move him away from the unknown substance in a black wrap that was coming towards Tolani in the air. But sadly, both of them were hit by it and began to cough. When Baba Agba got to his son Tolani, he was already on the floor. Baba Agba cried aloud in pain. "Toke, what have you done?" Immediately, Tolani began to shrink. Right in his father's arms, he began to grow younger and younger, from an adult to a teenager to a child, until he became a baby again. As Baba Agba was devastated, crying bitterly, Toke was on the run. Meanwhile, DUMEBI was nowhere to be found. DUMEBI could be seen, consumed by an unknown power that came over her. Her eyes had turned red. She kept walking and walking without looking back. She had trekked so far away, she found herself on a lonely desert. All she could do was take more steps further and further away from the village, leaving behind her husband Tolani, her beloved father-in-law Baba Agba, and the beautiful life she had created for herself in the land of Opa-Ikokore.